Trump says that he wants the name changed back to the Washington Redskins. Of course, he also mentioned the Cleveland Guardians, wants them back to be the Cleveland Indians. He impugns the owners of the Guardians and his friend, Josh Harris. Basically saying, listen, I know you're having some problems with the financing of the stadium. I know that we had this big celebration. We announced Ted Leonis' style, hey, we're going to have a deal done, right? Oh, not yet, maybe soon. Now we got it, now we don't. Puts the pre and pre-Sternberg mature in St. Pete. It's constant, these deals that are announced and then, oh, not quite done. Almost done. The deal with D.C., we've talked about, there's more updates on that, but the funding of the stadium, new for the Commanders in D.C., not quite as done as you may think. So you're reading through the tweet by Donald Trump, and you're just waiting, and you're saying, please, do not in any way associate this with our deal. Just come out and say it like Trump talked about Pete Rose, and then we'll go visit him, and then we'll reinstate Pete Rose off the permanently ineligible list. Everything's going to be fine. Oh, God, we're going to give money, we're going to donate, and we're going to take care of it so we as a law firm aren't going to suffer, and oh, God, we're still suffering. Sometimes when you do a deal with the devil, you know it's not as good as doing a deal with the devil you don't know. Sometimes doing deals with both sides of the devil ends up with you getting burned. He basically weighed in, Trump did, and said, the Washington whatevers should immediately change their name back to the Washington Redskins football team. I want to draw your attention to the Washington whatevers. The way he wrote it, and listen, you know how I feel about grammar. What's the apostrophe doing there? The Washington whatevers would not have an apostrophe. And you know they're called the Commanders. Come on. Just say the Washington Commanders should immediately. Now, I love using capital letters. It really shows. This is what I want you to read. It's not that I want you to change your name back to the Redskins. I want you to do it immediately. Obviously, knowing you can't just change the name immediately. Like by this season, it's done. Too late. Maybe by next season, the 2026 season. All right, maybe. Can't do it immediately. So why put that in caps? There's a big clamoring for this, Trump continued. Likewise, the Cleveland Indians, one of the 6 original baseball teams, well done, research team, with a storied past. Well, I wouldn't say that anyone who's a Cleveland Indians fan would say they have a storied past, but I digress. Our great Indian people in massive numbers want this to happen. I didn't see a quote in there from any Indian people. But anyway, so he does this, and it becomes a big story. So what do you do if you're the president of the United States and you're creating news, which is, as president of a baseball team, I felt powerful that I could create news just by calling up a reporter and saying, hey, there's a chance that we're going to trade Beckett. Oh, all of a sudden, that's newsworthy. Well, that seems interesting. Let me take this sort of power out for a spin. Imagine being the president of the United States of America, the most powerful person in any room. So a few hours later, another statement, another tweet from Trump. My statement on the Washington Redskins has totally blown up, but only in a very positive way. I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker Washington Commanders, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. Uh-oh. Josh Harris saw that one. And then panic set in. Now, it is true. In only hours, he learned that it's not the Washington whatevers, it's the Washington Commanders. He further learned that when you are going to threaten, it is way better to threaten with something that actually can hurt, because sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Here's the sticks and stones: money. Financial support for the ballpark that Josh Harris and the NFL have to replace FedEx Field, which is no longer FedEx Field. Why I just called it FedEx Field, giving attention to FedEx, who pulled their sponsorship because of Daniel Snyder. Where do the Commanders play now, Coca? Northwest, as in the old airline? That's an old reference to anyone out there. Anyone out there, and there's only like 32% of you, I love you. How is it possible that Trump could get in the way of financing? Is it true that there has to be some federal involvement? Yes. In the District of Columbia to get that deal done, while it is true that the council has authority and the D.C. mayor has none, and the D.C. mayor may or may not have it as part of the budget or what the D.C. mayor is going to fight for. But the reality is that there will be need. There will be the need at that stadium site for the federal government to have a say, a small stool at the table. And when you give a small stool to the federal government, this current federal government is the same as every federal government. It doesn't matter which side of the aisle on. I assure you, that small stool gets on steroids. It becomes a huge stool. And when you have to placate a stool, you put little cushions on the bottom of the legs of the stool. You try to keep it as quiet as possible. You may even put a cushion on top to make it comfy so nobody's back hurts. What you don't want is for that stool to somehow throw out thumbtacks that end up on the seats of everyone else at the table, totally screwing with everything and everybody. So what do you do if you're Josh Harris? The first one, that ridiculous, the Washington whatevers, I'll ignore that. The second one, I cannot ignore that at all. I very clearly have to now go speak to the president about this to find out what exactly he is going to do, how serious he is about this. Forget the blustery tweets or comments or off-the-cuff statements when traveling. When you have access to power, you have to be able to discern what is being used to show power and what is being used to keep power. Keeping power, no problem. Say whatever you want. Showing power is actually effectuating a change or doing something. The NFL is going to get involved. Josh Harris is going to get involved because that is a far more critical problem given the reality of what happened when that DC and their exclusive window that they had with this deal that it was announced, that window is basically closed. Josh Harris now has the ability to take his team elsewhere. He can start negotiating again with Virginia, again with Maryland. He can pull a Chiefs and try to get states against each other, Kansas and Missouri. He can pull a Bears and try to get cities and counties against each other, buying land in different places. The deal that he thought he had, it's done now. It's like St. Petersburg with the Tampa Bay Rays. Are you seeing how this works? You have no reason at all to go down the path that you were blazing if you find a better path. The next thing you'll read is that Maryland, Virginia, they stood up and they've got an offer on the table. They're ready to bring the Commanders, give them a deal. What does Josh Harris want? You know what he wants. It has nothing to do with DC, Maryland, or Virginia. He needs, because he answers to the NFL and the other owners, and he's using money from the pot that is grown by the NFL, that is like a stadium fund, that is part of a contribution to all of these new facilities. They've got this huge, huge multi-billion-dollar fund. And guess what? You're going to talk to the NFL and you're going to do the best deal you have, regardless of the location, because for a football stadium, as we've learned everywhere, you got to drive 40 minutes 8 times a year, maybe 9 once it's 18 games. It can be 9 every other year now with 17 games. You're going to do it. Would it be sexy and exciting to actually be in DC? Is the juice actually worth the squeeze? I don't know. What about the Guardians? They've got a serious situation because Trump not only was addressing the Commanders and the Redskins, but he actually just came out and said Cleveland should do the same with the Cleveland Indians. The owner of the Cleveland baseball team, Matt Dolan, who is very political, has lost 3 elections in a row because of that ridiculous name change. What he doesn't understand is that if he changed the name back to the Cleveland Indians, he might actually win an election. Indians are being treated very unfairly. This is a quote from our president. MEGA, make Indians great again. Do you see what's missing in that about the keep power, show power? There's no action in that. There's no true existential threat in that. So what the Guardians did is they immediately, because they knew in what category they were being mentioned along with the Commanders, they sent out their president, Chris Antonetti, with a response. I understand there are very different perspectives on the decision we made a few years ago, but it's a decision we made, and we've gotten the opportunity to build the brand as the Guardians over the last 4 years, and we're excited about the future that's in front of us. Outstanding. Why didn't the Commanders have the same response to this? Well, it's nothing personal. Aficionados, you know the answer to that. Because they can't. They can't come out with something that strong saying, hey, nice tweet, don't care, we're good. Because what the Cleveland Guardians are not in the market for is anything federal related. Now, are they risking an audit? Is Matt Dolan, in fact, risking losing elections? I, of course, associate the Cleveland Guardians with Paul Dolan, with his father, his son, Blitzer. Didn't associate it with Matt Dolan. That said, don't panic, Cleveland. It's going to be the Guardians. That said, panic, Commanders. It is very possible that this will work, and it's going to go back to be the Redskins. However, the immediately part is the part that will not stick.